Hello guys, Gukesh is a world chess champion as we saw in the last week. In Singapore, he defeated Ding Liren, who is a Chinese world champion. Now the important point, the topic of today's subject is DOGLAPAN, or so to say, double standards that we tend to follow as parents or as candidates or as people. Ashnil Grover has made this DOGLAPAN world famous by highlighting some of the double standards that we typically follow in our professional and personal lives. Now, the important point here is this video is not to demean parents who are desperately helping their children to uh, to aspire to be world champions in their area of focus. It can be sports or academics or any other fashion. The point here is to understand how a very limited portion of parents are basically working towards helping or supporting their wards. If it is Gukesh, then his parents are doing fantastically well. If it comes to my own children, then obviously I will not be able to manage this, and children will have to take care of themselves. Or there can be lack of commitments from parents towards the benefit or the well-being of children. So some of the aspects that we will try to understand today in today's videos are, in certain aspects we want our children to be successful, to aspire to be world champions, or to meet targets that we set for them. For example, if I want my children to be world champion in whatever XYZ, cycling or whatever, or career, or I want my children to be doctors, engineers, I only want them to do it because I think so. I'm not worried about, I'm not bothered about whether they like it or not. This seems to be the major doglapan that typically we as parents are following in today's world. So, citing Gukesh's example, and typically, most importantly, even more important than Gukesh's parents. The way they have carried themselves and the way they have managed Gukesh is exemplary. That is exactly why we are trying to analyze Gukesh's parenting, Gukesh's parents' parenting style, to understand if at all it can help us in any way. So the pros of typically, as you know, Gukesh's parents are father is ENT surgeon and mother is microbiologist, and after Gukesh showing certain interest or skills in chess while he was 6 years old, the family decided to support him in whatever way possible to pursue his hobbies and passions related to chess and the talent that he has for chess. Then obviously his school, Wellammal School, also supported him wholeheartedly. They have chess classes in their school and a very good coach. Because of coach's insistence and his discussion with parents, they decided that let us pursue this very aggressively. And I think one more important factor that worked in Gukesh's case is their proximity to Vishwanathan Anand. Proximity is in the sense physically. Vishwanathan Anand is from Chennai, and obviously they could relate the might and mighty rise of Vishwanathan Anand as a world champion from that also from Chennai. Then obviously that makes you comfortable that if at all everything works out, we can always try to be second Vishwanathan Anand from Chennai. That can be the aspiration. So I think after coaches' insistence and parents deciding to support Gukesh wholeheartedly, things I think started moving in the right direction. As you know, he started playing chess. Gukesh started playing chess when he was six year old, and he was grandmaster, India's grandmaster. I think the second youngest in the world. 12 years and 7 months, he was a grandmaster. He achieved his grandmaster degree in chess. So, important point here is as we grow, as Gukesh as a child grows from the age 6 to 12, obviously his requirements or his interests or his hobbies are very different. But if you try to understand that Gukesh was made to play chess almost 4 or 5 hours per day, almost every day, and then the training regimes were so stressful and time bound. Then obviously diet, then stress management, then physical sleep, and the rest, etc., etc. It is a whole cycle that he has to go through to achieve that level of expertise that can make him world chess grandmaster in the first place, and then obviously the world chess champion. So we'll just try and find out what those aspects of parenting typically that can be learned from Gukesh's parents, and then we'll understand how it can be developed on our behalf if we at all say that I want my children to be exceptional in whatever they do, but they should not expect anything from me other than maybe paying the fees and whatever. So this doglapan we are trying to understand today. In case of Gukesh's parenting, there are pros and cons both, and they have managed them very well. So the pros are basically very strong support system. As a child, you need your parents to be with you at all the times. Especially in case of Gukesh, when he was traveling while playing multiple tournaments and games across the country, across the state, across the globe. And then at that age, you need somebody trustworthy to follow you, to support you, to travel with you. And then that is why Gukesh's parents decided that father will travel with the child and mother will take care of the home front. So even after being a ENT surgeon, he had to sacrifice his career, and then move on with Gukesh as his coach and companion. So this is to be understood that Gukesh's mother was taking care of all the expenses of the family till today, when he became a world champion. So this is very important, strong support system, not only financial, emotional, social, all the support systems. Which is the father and son are traveling, there are obviously social obligations and familial obligations that needs to be met. So mother was taking care of all that. And strong support system, not in the case of success, but also in case of failures. So second point is sacrifice for excellence, which seems to be very important because success always has some price that we need to pay. If we are ready to pay the price, it can be time, it can be energy, it can be resources, it can be relationships, etc., whatever. So if at all we are ready to pay the price of success, then obviously success comes to us. And sacrifice is very important to pay the price. In case of this Gukesh's parents, the sacrifice can be his father sacrificing his career for the sake of child's career, his mother sacrificing certain comforts at the same time, sacrificing her comfort in the sense, if father and mother are both are working, obviously the stress, the financial stress, social stress, personal stress will be less. But the sacrifice is making sure that while son is pursuing his dreams and hobbies and passions, she is supporting wholeheartedly. So this sacrifice for excellence is important, not only from parents' perspective, but also from child's perspective, the candidate, so to say. So the child had to sacrifice his friends, his playful years, his hobbies, his passions, other than chess, obviously. So these sacrifices are important as a parents too. The third important point is fostering a growth mindset. When you say growth mindset, it is not only about making sure that we succeed all the time, but also making sure that if at all we fail, how do we learn from those failures and how do we move on? So no success can be final and no failure can be fatal until and unless we learn from them and move on and strive to be better version of ourselves. So this growth mindset, not only in terms of theoretical knowledge that we will manage this, but also to inculcate the same tendency or emotions in his child is also very important, because we nobody can guarantee that all the people will be successful at all the times. Unfortunately, people who are successful most of the times are mentally or physically or psychologically very weak to manage stress and difficulties and failures. This is what can be seen across all the spectra. So this fostering a growth mindset is very important. Third is access to right resources. As we know, Gukesh started playing chess when he was 6 years old, and when he was playing chess with his cousins. So when the family saw that this Gukesh is showing a penchant for playing flavored or spirited chess, so to say, and he was also supported by Wellemal School where he was studying. So Wellemal School has a very good chess ecosystem, including the coaches and labs, etc., etc. So while the parents understood that Gukesh has exceptional talent in chess, and coaches also discuss the same things with parents, then the next question obviously is, do we have the resources to make sure that Gukesh will be trained properly so that he can be a world's renowned, I'm not saying world champion, world's renowned chess player. He can be a grandmaster and then the world champion. So the resources can be finance, money is very important, then time, who will support him, who will give time, then obviously emotional, financial, emotional and psychological support in case of success and failure both, especially when the child is growing up. And the third is actual training and counseling, coaching. So training, basically, luckily Waka, which is Vishwanathan Anand's brainchild, is based in Chennai. And Chennai, as you know, has 35 grandmasters out of the 84 grandmasters in India as we speak. So Chennai is a hub of chess, Indian chess. We can say that very clearly. You can see that very clearly. He was at the heart of the chess revolution that is happening in India. Luckily, so the important point is resources were there, but how do we make sure that he gets the resources? So parents has to go parents has to make sure that he gets better coaching, better conditioning, better diet, better support, physical, mental, psychological. And while especially if I had to give example, I think the final in Singapore with Ding Liren, Gukesh won because of the mental stability or the psychological stability he has. As you can see, Ding Liren made a very childish mistake in the last game, and which cost him dearly. So he actually lost the world championship only on the weird mistake or the childish mistake. So at that time pressure, at that stage wherein you already have played 13, 14 games, as Gukesh rightly said, we actually Dean Liren and Gukesh, in one of his interviews, he said after playing 12, 13 games, we were actually dead, and we were playing dead people playing the chess. So the mistakes that Dean Liren made in the last game were avoided by Gukesh because Paddy Upton, who is a sports counselor, the mental counselor was with him, and he was working with the Gukesh for 6 months, and he was speaking to him almost every week. So the mental conditioning is also very important. Time management, stress management. So point here is, how do we access these resources important. So parents could access coaches could access Vishwanathan Anand could access Gary Upton. So this is the whole chain. The chain starts from the parents, and that is why the access to right resources is very important. Then the emotional stability, as we discussed, none of us can guarantee or expect that everything that we'll be doing will be successful at all the times. So in case of failures, how do we manage those failures and learn from them and move on is very important. It is not only about success and failures in the games, but also about the preparation towards the game. Are you feeling comfortable? If you need any break, mental break, physical break, you need to get out and spend some time with your friends and colleagues and neighbors, etc., etc. So this emotional stability is very important. The feeling that somebody is supporting me at all the times, irrespective of the results, is very important for child, especially. So balanced approach to studies and chess, as we discussed, D. Gukesh his charm, his spark could be seen when he was 6 years old. Obviously, at that stage, schooling is very important. As parents, we tend to focus on children's careers by educational aspect. So everybody, just like any other parent, would love their children to be doctors, engineers, or IT, or whatever that they aspire to be. So this balanced approach towards studies, because once Gukesh starts practicing, he has to spend 2, 3, 4 hours per day practicing the chess, and then the studies take backstage. So how do we manage studies and chess or the passion? So this is very important, and I think they have managed it beautifully. At the start, I think he skipped schools, and then homeschooling started. That's how it can be. It is still being taken care of. So obviously graduation is important, as you say, but at the stage at which he has reached now, I don't think educational qualification will be a matter anymore for him. Just like Sachin Tendulkar, nobody can ask him what your educational qualification is because of whatever he has achieved in cricketing world. So this is the balanced approach between the parents are very important. This approach is not for the children but for the parents. So the parents has to be mature enough to understand that there needs to be balance between the chase, the passion, and the studies, and making sure that the children follows the balanced approach. Then instilling discipline and time management is important, because as a parent you cannot teach the same thing to the child again and again 100 times. If the child is very receptive, he is very passionate about doing certain things, and if he learns, if his willingness is to learn, obviously once or twice, if you tell something, if you instruct something to the child, he will then follow up, and then you can keep on building on those instructions or on those suggestions or on those guidelines. But if the child is not at all listening to you, obviously then you'll be talking about the same thing 100 times and nothing will happen. So this discipline is not only about listening to what the coaches or the parents are saying or the seniors are saying, but also time management, stress management, diet management, how do you manage failures, etc., etc. It also includes how do we treat people and how do we interact with others is very, very crucial. This discipline, the personal, mental, psychological, financial discipline is very crucial. That has to come from the parents. And time management. So how do you manage your time is crucial. So I think these are the pros of some of the parenting tips that can be learned from Gukesh's parents. And Doglapan is because we can understand, we as a parents understand all these points, but we may not follow all those, or we may not find it inconvenient or practical or feasible for us to follow certain things, citing the reasons like, for example, I have jobs and I cannot manage, or I cannot spend time, etc., etc. So since Gukesh is successful now, obviously nothing negative can be said about his parents. But obviously, if certain parents are forming, if certain are forming their parental pattern behavior based on these things, then there can be certain cons that needs to be considered, that needs to be taken care of. For example, potential pressure to perform. So Gukesh or the child is always under constant pressure to perform at all the levels. It can be a normal match, it can be practice match, it can be district match, it can be state level match, it can be national match, it can be international match, it can be world championship final, etc., etc. So this constant potential pressure to perform basically starts eating into your mental and physical strength. So if you cannot manage that expectation or the pressure, then obviously it can be very difficult. And as a children, they are not expected to know all these things. That it has to come from the parents. And if parents does not know themselves, obviously they cannot teach their children. So this is a very important aspect. Potential pressure to perform. Can we manage it? Can manage it? Can we teach our children to manage it? Second point is lack of social interaction. Once the child starts playing, focusing on his passion, then obviously the time is limited. So the limited time he has to spend between his hobbies and passions and must do's. So this social interaction starts to get affected, because of which the normal progress or normal development of a child, the the character development, so to say, first degree character development, that gets affected. So how do you make sure that these social interactions or the lack of autonomy, these kind of situations can be managed? So social interactions are very important. Like Gukesh is, for example, attending a normal school, regular school. Obviously, he'll have multiple friends, and they will be discussing about multiple things. They will be doing multiple things which he cannot now. So these social interaction, social circles are very limited. How do you make sure that it does not negatively impact or affect overall development of a child? So this again responsibilities of the child is with not with the child but with the parent. Then high expectations. How do we manage expectations not only from the child in case of Gukesh, but also from parents? Like example, Gukesh's parents. So if your children is showing exceptional ability or capacity in chess, and if he becomes grandmaster at the age of 12 years and 7 months, obviously expectations from the parents of other people are also very great. Society demands, society expects you to support him at no matter what. Then obviously your peers, your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues, they also expect you to perform to a certain standard, and make sure that your child is supported. So this managing these expectations is very important, and as we grow, expectations rise exponentially. So how do you manage the expectations? So parents also not only have to manage expectations of others from them, but also to manage expectations from others about his or her child. So this expectation mismatch is a very crucial aspect that needs to be considered very thoroughly. Then the next point is limited personal time. Obviously, while once you start working on these passions and hobbies, the training time, the resting periods, traveling, accommodation, all these issues, all these activities start taking time, start eating a lot of time from your daily routine. So how the personal time, not only for the child but also for the parents while they are traveling, that also is limited. So how do you manage this personal time and the repercussions? That also is very important, because since we are single-mindedly focused on chase, obviously after 1, 2, 3, 4 months you need to take a break, you need to move away from the chase and then come back fresh, etc. How do you manage this is very important. Then burnout risk. So even after doing everything, even after following all the routines, patterns, training methods, etc., nobody can guarantee success. And if at all the child is not able to manage that routine itself, even before we are not talking about the winning or losing the match. If the child is not able to manage the preparation itself, then obviously there is a chance of burnout, wherein you are just slugging, you are just working extremely hard and nothing is coming out. So that burnout is very risky proposition, because once the child or the parent gets burnt out, then obviously his performance starts degrading. His willingness to participate in those activities also starts to degrade, and then there's no way it can be a we can reach to world class stage. Then the next important point is how the parents need to manage on the negative repercussion is overemphasis on achievement. Everything that we do as a child or as a parent is always scrutinized from the parameter of success or failure. Are you successful or failure? Have you won the match or lost the match? That is the only thing that people start expecting from you. And this overemphasis on achievement also starts building into our mentality. And if at all we tend to feel that we are losing, then obviously it starts to degrade our personal confidence, self-confidence, and then obviously all things go downhill. Yeah, just to give example, for example, if Magnus Carlsen is saying that, "Oh, I'm not participating in the World Championships," the logic he has given is, in all the other aspect or in all the other tournaments that I play, I'm thinking about winning. Whereas in World Championships, World Chess Championships, he said, I'm preparing for it for 6 months, 1 year, but I'm worried, I'm thinking about not losing. So this mentality of thinking about winning in all the other chess tournaments and thinking about not losing in the World Chess Championships, these are negative repercussions, negative connotations. So if we start looking at this as a over achievement, I have to perform and I have to be successful in all aspects, then obviously these kinds of things start happening. And one more important is potential of lack of autonomy. When child starts working on these aspects at a very early stage of his early age, the remaining natural development that he has to go through, social interactions and physical activities, etc., that also tends to get backstage, and it needs to be managed properly. Otherwise, it can have negative repercussions on children's development, overall development. So all these aspects, while we talk about Doglapan, the Doglapan is not to demean the parents who are actually wholeheartedly supporting their children in achieving something worthwhile, but also to show to 60, 70, 80% of the remaining parents that the admissions to the schools or admissions to the sports facilities or admissions to certain passion hobbies, etc., is not for the social status or prestige issue of ourselves, but also about development of our child. So the specific pointers that need to be focused on while we analyze Gukesh's parents' parenting style. So time commitment: are we in position to commit time? Are we in position to commit resources? Expectations and pressure: are we in position to manage expectations and pressure that will come with the so-called objectives or goals of our lives? Then are we in position to make sure that we are committed to financial investment that's required for our children to become world champions? Are we committed enough to support emotional and psychological support in case of success and failure to our children in both the cases with equal strength and equal measure? Then are we in a position to balance life beyond competition? Because children, as we know, they are growing up and they need so many things other than obviously the chess competition or world championship. So are we in position to balance all those aspects? Then are we in position to teach our children about managing success and failure with the same ease? And the last point for especially for parents is so that they don't end up in dogla or double standards is, do we have long-term vision and career development plan if at all something goes wrong with the plan that you already have? For example, in Gukesh's parents case, if at all after doing everything, if Gukesh failed to be a grandmaster or a world champion, what other career options he has? What is the long-term vision in case of failure? What he should do? What he may be doing? What is possible for him to be doing in his career throughout his 30, 40, 50 years of career? That is very crucial. Now, as we speak, since he's a world champion, he can always try and defend his title for 10 years more, and then obviously he will get into coaching just like Vishwanathan Anand, then he has a career set for himself. But not everybody can be a Gukesh, and not everybody can be Domaraju, the parents. So this Doglapan is not only from the perspective of children but also from the parents. We must understand that we cannot expect the results without putting in certain resources and efforts. Especially as a parents, we need to be aware of all this Doglapan, and we need to take care of all these pros and cons of parenting styles. I'm publishing videos related to careers and parenting, etc. I'm sure they are helping a lot of people and getting a lot of comments and likes and remarks and messages. I would request you to subscribe, like, comment so that more and more such videos can be shared with all of you. Thank you very much.